One. Bump. Hey, everybody, and welcome to another Toy Wizards Live Toy Talk. I'm Scott Zillner. This is Lauren Stone, Jason Schermeyer, and Matthew LaCroix with Scorched Earth Initiative Strike Force Alpha Kickstarter that starts tomorrow. What time does it start tomorrow, gents?
It'll be midnight tonight, actually. So, right?
Oh,
12 a.m., which will technically be the 4th. So we couldn't wait any longer.
So what you're telling me is after drunk Santa visits me on this blessed Friday night, Saturday night, on this lovely Saturday night, then I can go, the Kickstarter's live, and like order too many, right? That's what I'm hearing. Is that correct?
That's our
plan. Oh yeah.
Diabolical plan.
Summer Santa, it's you. Yep. You guys did it right.
Well, I'm sure there's a lot of people that aren't totally aware of what Strike Force Alpha is or what the genre of this toy is. Because it's actually, it's a very specific genre that you guys are making your own toy line in. And why don't you give them a little bit of information on that style of figure?
All right.
Yeah. So you want to start?
Go ahead, Jason. Go ahead.
Okay.
History.
Well, so Matt and I are big fans of the G.I. Joe O-ring figures from the 80s, and we had G.I. Joe, Remco, and all the other knockoff companies, and that's been played a big part in our lives and everything. So we really wanted to do a project that kind of was an homage to those figures, and so a lot of people are making more modern stuff, and everything went to more articulation and everything. So we tried to get the look and feel of the classic G.I. Joe figures, but we've kind of added a few modern twists to it, and we've tried to kind of hide those modern articulation points so you don't really see them, but they're there. And we just didn't want to copy. We didn't want to take a original G.I. Joe figure and send it over to a factory and copy it. We wanted to have our own sculpts and our own characters. And then the articulation just started to evolve. We started brainstorming, and we would make a new change, and we would try it out. We've got a commercial 3D printer, and we'd print the parts out and try them and make changes, and then the next evolution would come by. And we just kind of didn't want to get put into a box where we had to have an O-ring or we had to have this or that. We just kind of left it open and let it evolve, really. And it was just a lot of back and forth with Matt and myself and a lot of other creative people that have helped us out. But that's kind of where we were headed. We wanted everything that we've done. We've got a little animation that I just put up on the Instagram. It looks like an old 80s cartoon. Our theme song sounds like it just came out of the 80s. So everything we're doing is really kind of a nod to that time period.
How did you guys how did this business relationship happen? Can you guys tell us that story? Because I know Matt, you're really well known artistically for the customs you've been doing for a very, very long time now in this, originals and pieces adapted from G.I. Joe figures, from the 80s. So we all know that you've come up with some independently. There was one in 2019 that sold really well. So what drew you together to be like, no, let's up this, make our own, and mass produce them?
Well, what drew us together was actually, Jason had been putting out a set of O-ring figures, and they looked really cool. I liked them, and I was like, we just got to talking, and we grew from there. And it was like we were both like-minded as far as what we wanted to do, what we wanted to put out there, like original storyline and things like that. So we just kind of hit it off. We had a lot in common, and like Jason was saying, it's progressed. It's the evolution of this thing is really something special, and we feel like this is kind of like it. I was telling Jason today, it's like, man, we've been working on this for a couple of years. It's more like 3 years actually, but everything fell into place, and there's the right time for this. We weren't ready like a year into it or something like that. it's just this is the time right now. We're finally there, and yeah, this is it. We're ready for it. So
I can't help but hear like the Goonies in my head. This is our time now.
this is it.
Yeah.
Speaking
Lock
of
and
the
load.
80s. That's awesome. So speaking of the lore and the character, I mean, you guys are out the gate with a huge wave. Like when we covered them on Toy Wizards, I mean, was it like 11? Correct me if I'm wrong. Give me the right number, but there was many figures out the gate. Huge first wave that you're aiming for with that Kickstarter.
Well, we got 15 figures. We're starting off with 9 on the Kickstarter, and then the remaining would be stretch goals. And the what we tried to do is each character designed it has a commander or a leader figure, and then he also has an alternate troop builder. So we wanted to have both of those things, and so there's in future waves there'll be a lot of different color differences between those characters, but that's kind of how we designed it. And then they because of the articulation and stuff we have, the heads are swappable. You can just pop them off, and we can show that on the video here. But in the hands, we've got 3 sets of hands with every figure, and you can have a karate chop or saluting hand or a fist hand. And so yeah, we kind of said, hey, let's go big. I mean, we thought because of the swappability, really, we thought, if we just came out with 2 figures, there wouldn't be a lot of play value there and a lot of swapping. I mean, you can only do so much with 2 figures. If you had 4 or 5 different, body styles there, I mean, you've got a lot of interchangeability there. All the parts can interchange. You can put the arms from one to another, or the legs, or whatever you want to do. And so, in future waves, we'd like to do some blank type figures that people can paint up and customize, and sell customizing kits and things of, boots and hands. And we want to do prosthetic limbs and things,
Nice.
for like warrior type characters, and just all kinds of stuff. So that's kind of what. But yeah, it was a big bite that we took there. But we made a comic book, and the story evolved, and the characters evolved, and the sculpts evolved, and we didn't really have a plan. It just kept, like, hey, let's do this, let's do that, and. But we wanted to create kind of more of a universe, and not just create G.I. Joe knockoff figures. Like we wanted our own, everything new, And so yeah, we're but it was a lot. Matt and I about killed each other multiple times. I know that he's probably told his wife he hates me a bunch of times. But I'm a little bit OCD and a little bit of a taskmaster, and I've really seen Matt. He was a great sculptor and painter before, and he's just gotten better and better because we didn't stop. If something didn't look right, or if my idea wasn't good, Matt would say something, or if he had something wrong with the sculpt, I would say something, and we just kind of push each other, even to the point of madness to get this stuff, right. And so, like Matt said, it wasn't right a year ago. We thought we could get this done sooner, but we just kept looking at things and making revisions and making it, better and better. And so it all just kind of fell together in the last week or so.
Yeah. Hopefully it'll be in place by tomorrow, because it's go time.
Yeah.
Listen, let me ask you guys, while you were talking about the the comic book that's corresponding with it, that triggered my thought. So you guys have fleshed out a world of some sort. So is that something you guys built together? Did you bring in a writer? Like, how big in your mind is this, could this be, how big could this be for you guys?
I think just to kind of, I don't know, and Matt can interject, because some of the evolution is hard to remember, and there were so many different things. But originally, I was really kind of sprucing up my Joe collection, and before I met Matt, and I started getting into some of the later waves, the kind of terrible paint job waves, like the space stuff and everything for G.I. Joe. But I could kind of see some really good sculpts underneath those paint apps, and so
yeah, those sculpts are great. It's
Yeah,
just
they're
the
great.
color choices were so bad
Yeah,
that it made people leave GI Joe. When if you take that, something that the GI Joe Club did a lot was
yeah,
take those figures and repaint them, and everyone was blown away and they're like, "Wow, that figure's great! I never seen that figure before." Yeah, you did. It was Ice Cream Soldier.
yeah,
Like no one realized how good the sculpts were because the paint
yeah.
jobs were so weird in that specific time point.
Yeah, for some reason, my taste changed, and I started to appreciate those figures and those sculpts, and I wanted to do a space theme, and we just kind of Matt and I started kicking things around, and then Troy Osgood, I think is how you pronounce it. He's a writer. He's got we put him up on our Instagram page, but he's got some published books and things, and he was kind of wanting to do a project like this, and so it was awesome from day one. He just started writing all this stuff, and I love writing, and Matt's a very creative guy, and so we would take stuff that Troy gave us and we put our own spin on it and stuff, and it was just really cool because it's just a really creative project, with the art and the writing and the sculpting and the articulation. It was just a lot of really cool things coming together there. And like I said, we didn't sit down and say we're going to make a ninja, we're going to make this. We started with one figure, and we started with these writing file cards for these characters. We really started fleshing out the universe before we had much done on the sculpts. And we really wanted to tell a story here and have this makes sense. So it's kind of like the evolution after GI Joe. So it's several years in the future, and things have gotten worse in the United States, and this group came together to fight injustice, and everything. And so there was people would messages us. Troy, like I said, would do a lot. Matt and I just we would just pick ideas out. Ideas would come up. We go back and rewrite file cards and rewrite storylines, and the comic book. I'll get your addresses when we're done. I'll send you guys the comic books. It's I think you'll love them.
I'd love to read it.
Yeah, 32 pages and a lot of artwork, and really the comic book. Matt and I have put ourselves into the character. So there's a figure that's kind of Matt's. It's kind of Matt's representation. There's one that's mine, and in the comic book, it's these two kids, and they're like at their own houses, and they're talking on walkie-talkies back and forth, and they're playing with these Strike Force figures, and they put the mom puts the cartoon in the VCR, and so it's just like juxtaposition back and forth between Matt and his character Nomad, and seeing the action there, and then my character's Wolf, or John Wolf, and so it's just was really fun to do. But all that stuff kind of just helped, make us decide, okay, who's next? What character? What's this character look like? What's he need to do? What's his specialty? And then Matt would get this. Then we have an artist, George Vega, and he would do character turnarounds for all of our characters. We would kind of design them up and give them a mock-up or something. He would do the artwork, send it to Matt, and then Matt would sculpt them up. Matt would always change something after we had all the artwork done, and then I would have to go back and change all the artwork to match But that was just the kind of push and pull that Matt and I have done, where we've frustrated each other, we've caused each other to be angry and different things, but that's what needed to happen to get things where they are. But that's kind of how it evolved, and I think you can see the genuine love of this stuff in our work, and I think that was really had a lot to do with our approach, by not just saying, hey, let's make some figures that everybody will buy. Everybody likes bat character, bat robot characters. Let's do those, or let's do that. We didn't do that. We just kind of took our love for this stuff and brainstormed and started fleshing out this story, and then everything kind of fell in place after that.
Well, I'm glad that you guys were able to get through any sort of like creative turmoil and stuff like that. Because the other day I asked Matt how to pronounce your last name, and he gave me a 4-letter word. So you guys might have been fighting at that time.
Yep.
Just kidding. Right. That didn't happen, but it was funny.
Jason touched on, folks behind the scenes that has helped us in this whole development. And there's too many to name. right here, right now. But that's the good thing about Strike Force 2 is that it's so organic and it's from the community, because it's not just these guys in a Hasbro board meeting or something. We've got input from all angles and different guys in the community that have helped us with cool ideas along the way. And that's what we want to give back, is to let everyone know we're the fans. This is for the fans. This is our love letter to this genre of action figure, basically.
Now, speaking of the action figures, I actually do have them right in front of me right now, and I'm going through them. Now, I do have experience with one of them, you know, our ninja guy. And what's very interesting about this is that, like you guys said, there's several versions you can do. And that has to do with the way that your added articulation to this line is. They are not strictly 3 3/4 GI Joe figures. They have additional pop and swap options that actually make them better than the traditional GI Joe figures. I mean, I'm just playing around with them. Even though I kind of know the ninja, I'm seeing these other guys and I'm like, oh wow, this guy's really nice. This is not your Lanyard or Rimco, you know, wannabe Joe. This is actually a figure I would put in with my GI Joes. This is that nice. But he's got this, you know, karate chop hand that you can just, let's not try not to break it on screen.
And then bring it closer.
I'm afraid I'm going to snap it off.
No, just bring it so we can see it. I want to see it.
Yes. So obviously this is a prototype, but the hands can swivel and pop off. Now, by popping off that hand, we can go grab another hand and pop it on. So by this hot swap technology, there we go, he now has not just added articulation, but the arms basically come off at the forearm, kind of like the old bat hands. And that was the one hand that could actually swivel because of that. So these have a swivel, an arm joint, and a swivel joint up here, and then your normal joint there. So that gives you a lot of new added ability with these toys, but that's not all. Down here, these boots, again, whoops, I just tore his leg off. The boots can just hot swap, pop off, and the heads pop off on a ball joint. This is very nice. And now you can take that troop builder head, pop that head on, and boom, you got a whole nother figure. That right there gives you added availability for whatever figure you buy. You can swap on the heads, you can swap off the arms, you can swap off the boots. The boots pivot because of that swivel. And because of that added bit, I think they're better than your traditional GI Joe figures. So you guys not only made a figure in that genre, but you've improved on the genre itself. These are better figures.
Well, one of the things I did some O-ring figures with company Red Laser. I did 12, GI Joe type figures with O-rings, and there was a percentage of them that, because of the rivets and different things, they arrived broken, and that's a hard process for factories nowadays to be able to replicate. And so we tried to make this where we don't have broken figures, and the customer really, I love like the Madelman 2020, I think it's called, figures where you can swivel the heads around and it becomes a different character. And I'm not a mint and box kind of guy. I'm a like, let's get the stuff out and get it, opened up and play with it. And that's what this line's all about. It's about having options and playing with it and customizing them to your liking. And we really want to be able to get to the point where we have boot kits and hand kits and gloved hands and all these different options, and people can kind of build their own troopers or whatever they want to build. So
So in terms of the world building, because I feel as somebody who was not a G.I. Joe fan as a kid, that's where I'm different from the three, of you guys. But now as an adult, I see the categorizing. You have, the I guess I'll call them the army dudes, the army people. You have your villains, and you have kind of like the ninjas and creatures. They're all sort of embedded into G.I. Joe. Do you guys have your own take? I see there is like a ninja character. You have a traditional army. In your mind, like, do you have your? And I've looked at all the characters, but for me, I'm just looking at really nice looking figures. I don't understand the world as well as like you guys do because it's your creations. What are your categories amongst the figures?
Well, I think we want to cover all the ground. We want to have ninjas, zombies, sci-fi, military. We just want to cover all the bases. So nothing's out of the box on this. We're going to explore all kinds.
One of the things that I did early on was I looked at the original 82 figures and the 1982 G.I. Joe figures. So what I find amazing about that is they took about just a couple different torsos and couple different arms and legs, and they made they flopped them all around and made different characters. And even though they're made up of a lot of the same parts, they still look like different characters. And so I really studied a lot of that stuff and said, okay, what are some of those basic torsos that they were made up of? And so that started, some of the groundwork for that. And then, I love, World War II. I like reading about history and all this, stuff like that. And, did we lose everybody?
No, I think we're just making room for pictures.
Oh, okay. So I love, that kind of stuff. So, I literally would get online and just research and look at military uniforms from different wars and different countries, the uniforms they wore, and then I would take those into Photoshop and just kind of start playing around with them. And that was kind of my process. And I would kind of mock something up and send it to Matt. And we really a lot of times we just each had our own job to do. I can sculpt and paint and stuff. I'm not as good as Matt. Matt's good with design, but we kind of divided up the duties and did what we were the best at. And so that's kind of how those characters came together. But I would say a big part of it was, like I said, just classic military uniforms and stuff, and maybe just sprucing them up a little bit or kind of modern. It's kind of just a mixture of modern and war uniforms from the 40s or something or whatever.
They're so cool looking. Do you guys have any? Are there any lady characters in the pipeline?
Yeah, I posted them on Instagram. So we've got 3 lady characters. They're in the comic book as well. They're real badass. They wearing leather, and that was a really fun character design. They were in leather, but they have like holsters and stuff, kind of more like cowboy looking almost. But the way
I'm gonna check now. I follow it. I follow you guys on Instagram, but the algorithms.
Well,
keep going.
Yeah, so that figure you're holding right there, I'd like to mention that Matt became friends with Bill Merkline, and he can talk more to that. But that was the figure that he sculpted for us, and we named that character. His real name is Bill or William Merkline, and he actually looks kind of like William or Bill, and that's just kind of a fantastic story in itself. And Matt, you want to share some of that?
Yeah, I was gonna ask if Bill Merkline had any involvement in this line, because I know the two of you are friends, and he's had input on your previous work, Matt.
Absolutely. Like Jason was saying, that's Dr. Diablo, sculpted by Bill, and we were just so honored that he, it's the first time he sculpted a figure like this in over 30 years. So we were just honored. He's taught me a lot too. Everything that I would sculpt, he's not on the internet, so I would take photos, go up to Walgreens and make prints of them and ship them to Bill so he could critique my work. That's part of the reason why a lot of things took so long too. But I mean, he's a wonderful guy. He's responsible for like over 70 of the original most iconic characters in the A-Raw line. And for him to do Dr. Diablo for us that was just the icing on the cake, and just makes this even more special to us.
Yeah.
These figures are really nice. Like, I really like the depth of detail. I like the articulation. I like the overall design. I like the hot swappable heads and hands and feet. The fact that you can swivel a foot just makes all the world in difference. McFarlane is not doing swivel feet like this on their giant figures.
And with the wrist too, like you were talking about the swivel, they can hold their weapons better too, you know.
If you look at the
as an original 82 Joe guy, I had many Joes lose their thumbs just trying to get a gun and hold it into their arm, and I would just break fingers, and you know, that happened a lot. And that won't happen with these guys because they can move their arms, you know.
And if you look at the elbows, where the rivet normally would go, we sculpted a rivet there, so it looks like a rivet there. We wanted to capture that, but there's no rivet.
No rivet.
So it's those little details that are clever, and I think that people may not like recognize right off the bat. They're going to look like the figures they're used to playing with, but there's a little bit more to it under the surface, you know.
Yeah, it's nice. They're really
That's
nice.
That's another interesting aspect about this line that we're doing, is because we're trying to use a lot of traditional sculpting style like they did back then, but at the same time, I mean, we're doing 3D sculpting as well, but we wanted to incorporate it just so it's, you know, nobody else is doing that right now.
Yeah, so we actually made a digital buck without details on it, and then Matt went in and sculpted over it. And I love 3D modeling. I think it's incredible. It's awesome. I've used it on different projects and stuff. But there's something to be said about organic, you know, sculpting, especially I think with clothing and things with folds and things like that. I just prefer, you know, real sculpting. And there's other things like guns and stuff that I think they need to be 3D modeled. They need to be sharp and crisp, you know. And so it's a lot more work and it's a lot more frustration, but the end product, I think, is just something that feels like it was, you know, made back in the 80s. And so that's kind of where we went with that.
Well, I mean, like, if these were the knockoff Joe figures at Kmart when I was a kid, I would have grabbed them. You know, they really have that good look to them that you know, we want. That aesthetic, that very, very specific aesthetic is here in Bounds. And once you have one in your hand, I know no one else can do this but me right now because I've got the prototypes. Once you have them in hand, it's really, really nice. You're like, hot damn, I've got a new figure in my world of figures of this type of, you know, scale and articulation.
Well, that's one of the things that I think works against us is we need to get them in people's hands, because until you actually see it, it's kind of hard for people to understand. And when we took them out to the JoeCon last year and people could handle them and play with them, they're like, oh, okay, I see what you're doing. We were really nervous about eliminating the actual O-ring from the figure. And we went back and forth over it multiple times about it. And, you know, I think what we ended up with, it looks just like the legs and everything from an O-ring Joe figure, how they connect and everything. But there's just a little bit more movement there you can do with them, a little bit more posability.
And like, if you live anywhere warm like I do, more than half of my Joes have all just had O-ring deterioration because of the heat. And I just have half bodies everywhere, or fallen down bodies. I have some on the wall, like my Street Fighter figures. I put them up on the wall and they just fall down occasionally. Just one just breaks in half, and I'm like, well, that guy's dead.
Yeah.
You can't even fix the Street Fighters. He's just dead, you know. Another one has died under my watch.
Well, that, you know, some of the choices we made were to make not only the manufacturing easier, and the sourcing of parts. I've looked for the rivets and all those things. They're really hard to find the sizes and all that. So some of those choices were made for that. But really, we wanted to be able to put out, you know, customizing packs where somebody can take their existing figures that they already have, you know, purchased, and now we offer a new upgrade. It could be a robotic arm that they want to, you know, a cybernetic arm or a prosthetic arm or whatever. And so we had to make everything where it you know, was easily put together without tools. That was the whole thing. We didn't want somebody to have to take a screwdriver and take a figure completely apart and try to swap things around.
But, you know, as a kid, we did that out of natural curiosity. And
Yeah.
G.I. Joe was one of the lines that we could easily take apart, rebuild, and they would break on us, and we would rebuild it, you know, and
Yep.
not every line was that accessible. Masters of the Universe, when they broke, they were just done. You just grabbed off the arms and the gear, and you would use it on another figure. The guy that had legs that were broke, there wasn't rubber band kits at that point. You're just,
Yeah.
you know, he was dead. I have Cobra Khan legs in my backyard right now. I'm just like, it's broken. It's done. You know,
Yeah.
there's nothing you can do with that guy. He's a goner. But it was something that made the G.I. Joe line very special for people. Whereas Star Wars, you could not take them apart. You couldn't rebuild them. And, you know, if your Chewbacca lost an arm, you know, you just had a one-armed Wookiee and that was it. You were done. There wasn't any fixing it or making new figures, which is what led a lot of us to be creative in that aspect. That, oh, I could swap this head off with that guy and I can do something else. I can build a different figure. Even with this, you know, I really like this bad guy figure. I really do. You can take that head off and I can take the master head and pop it on, and now I've got another new figure. You know, it's that easy and quick to just pop a head off, pop another head off, and you've got something else.
Yeah.
This head is nice. Oh man, the eye patch beret and beard tone is just really, really iconic to any of us that grew up watching 80s military movies. There was always one of those dudes in it somewhere, and you didn't want to mess with him. And boom, again, you can got another figure by just hot swapping a head over. And that just gives you, if you initially buy 4 figures or 8 figures, you've got so much more to work with as soon as you do that. And that's great.
Yeah. And I think what you're talking about, that's what started, at least for me, and I'm sure Matt's the same, doing all that customizing. That's where all this started for me. These ideas and making action figures and doing all that really started there when I had a pile of broken figures and I took them apart and made some new character and came up with a backstory for them.
Yeah. I had a cigar box.
Yeah.
Of G.I. Joe, dead man G.I. Joe parts in a cigar box. You know, and that was my when a guy would fall apart, that's where he would go, and I would sometimes rebuild a guy. Or I know my Snake Eyes, both thumbs broke on my Snake Eyes figure, so I gave him Zartan arms because I had an extra Zartan that broke, and that's just how things went.
I might have to go try that when we get off of here.
Oh, those Zartan arms work great on a Snake Eyes. Yeah, it does. It really does.
Well, one thing that I hated about the figure so is Hasbro kept changing the size of different things, and so that was one of the rules we had from day one was every one of our figures, the holes, we're going to have holes in the feet. Those are going to be the same for every figure. The backpack holes are going to be the same. The articulation points are all the same, so that you can swap every single part. Because it was so frustrating to you'd have all these parts and then you're like, okay, this arm that doesn't work. Okay, this one's tight, you know. And so that was one of the things that we kind of unwritten laws that we created in the beginning was everything has to be the same.
And that's great to have that kind of consistency through a line to, you know, help assure it go through.
So guys, with your Kickstarter launching, I guess, you know, very early tomorrow, very late tonight. 4th of July.
Tonight.
Yes, tonight. Very okay. What do you want people to know about the Kickstarter campaign? Let's talk. Since we talked about the toys, they're amazing pieces. I'm so happy that Scott, you had them to show off. Let's talk about the Kickstarter campaign and what fans need to know when backing this thing.
Yeah, so there's some new things, or they're fairly new changes with the Kickstarter that people may or may not know about, and some people are going to be new to that platform and they may know nothing about it. So now that I've got it sort of figured out, it is fairly easy. I looked at a lot of different Kickstarters, and I looked at what people were pledging on, and I tried to make rewards that people actually were going to pledge on. I see a lot of people put stickers up for $5, and then you look at the campaign and one or two people ordered stickers, and it's like, that's a lot of extra work later on that doesn't give a lot of benefit. I mean, I would love to do stuff like that later. So it's pretty focused on the figures. And basically, I think people, you only get one pledge per credit card. So people need to look through all the pledges and make sure that they pick one that they're going to be happy with. I put pictures there so you can see what you're getting on each pledge, and then there's a good description. But the first thing I think people need to do is really look through the pledges and pick something that they want, because once you've selected that, you can't go back and pick a different one. The other thing is they were doing the add-ons on the back end after the campaign was over. Now Kickstarter has add-on features right then and there. So you do your pledge, and then it's going to take you to a section that says manage your pledge or whatever. And then you're going to just have a button called add-on, and you're going to see all these new things pop up. And so it's kind of like an add-on is just like you're just putting more stuff in your cart. So you got to do a pledge in order to get to the add-on features. Once you do your pledge, you can do the add-ons. And the add-ons, I just did single figures of all the characters. The Ninja Shadow Blade is an add-on only figure. So you have to do your regular pledge, whatever that may be, and then Shadow Blade is only in the add-on section. And then I offered troop packs of five figures. So people that just want to buy troopers, you can get 5 of them for each character, and they're a little for that way. But it's pretty. I didn't want to put T-shirts and comic books and all this stuff on there and confuse what we're trying to do here. What we're trying to do is get these figures made in China, and our cost kind of, I went to the factory and got quotes on everything, and I've done a lot of manufacturing and shipping, so everything is pretty much what it is. That those are the costs that's going to take to get those molds done. The great thing, though, I kind of meander around on my storytelling here, but the great thing later on is once we get through this Kickstarter, we're gonna be able to sell the next waves a little bit. We're gonna be able to sell them cheaper, and so really what people are helping us do is get these molds done. And once we get through that process, there's going to be a lot of opportunity later on for different colorways and different figures where we swap parts around. And we'll be able to get the price down. So I know some people, I didn't want to, charge $25 a figure, but when I added up all the costs, that's what it was,
And that's where I don't think a lot of people understand. Like when you go to make your figure, when you go to independently create an action figure, it is not as cheap as a Mattel toy in Walmart.
Right.
Well, how come Walmart can sell that? It's like, well, because Walmart calls the shots. Those are big companies doing a big thing. You guys are starting off fresh. You need to build this stuff up, and the initial mold cost is outrageously high.
Yeah.
Outrageously high. It's something that people don't even understand is shipping containers. By the time we've made this video, to the time your Kickstarter launches, shipping costs have risen.
Right.
Just the other week, they were $17,000 a cargo container. Now they're $19,000 a cargo container. And this is from 6 months ago. They were $4,000 a container.
Right.
So shipping costs have risen so much. Even if you look at Hasbro, their figures are $2 to $4 higher than they were half a year ago. And that's where they're adding in that additional shipping cost constantly to the figures. Figures at the end of the year will be another $2 to $4 expensive because cargo containers or shipping costs are rising so rapidly right now.
Yeah, and I used to use shipping containers, and now then it was a little bit more expensive, but I started using FedEx and other things because we're doing 500 figures at a time, and I was able to get my orders 4 or 5 days after they shipped them. It was amazing, and they get right to my house, and I would just kind of add that cost in, and I had an order in, and they came back with the shipping, and it was over double of what it typically is, and so that's definitely a game changer, for figuring out costs and stuff.
Yeah, here's a question we got in the chat. Why do they have to be made in China if shipping is so much? And that's because in order to get these type of action figures made, it's a mold injection system. And that mold injection system means you got to get molds made. Where do you get molds made? Molds are made in China. And when they're made in China, they never leave China. You can't export molds. That's one of those weird things they got. You can't get a mold out of China, but they're only manufactured in China. And that's a kind of a catch-22 that China's been doing since the tea trade. If they can get something, they won't let it be exported. And then just mold and supplies to make the stuff, the plastic to make the molds, you would have to import that stuff into the States to get it to be made in an injection site machine, to be made in a mold here, and then the figure costs $58. It's it's still cheaper using China. A lot of people, me included, are using Vietnam now as manufacturing. Some of these manufacturing jobs are leaving China because even China doesn't want to make stuff this small anymore, even if they do charge you literally an arm and a leg.
Yeah, so the first action figure I made was about 15 years ago, and I've been asked this question so many times, and I researched it to death. I went to machine shops and I priced molds to get them done here. I looked at injection molding.
It can't be done.
Yeah, and so something that would cost me $500 in China would cost me $4,000 here, and you can't in these small runs you can't make it work. Yeah, but what I did do, and what I continue to do with stuff is I do everything I can here. So I get my printing done here. Generally, clamshells that I have them made here in the States. Some of the stuff that I make, we assemble here. So I would love to make it all here, and I think that's going to be more and more possible with 3D printing, where you can 3D print molds now and stuff for smaller runs. I think the technology is going to be there where we can do more of that here, and it's going to take some time, but it's getting closer.
That was actually a conversation I had today with another toy guy on how printing on demand is becoming so cheap and so good, and molds keep getting more and more expensive, that we're going to hit that tipping point where everything will then be printed and not mold made anymore. Like we're going to hit that point within the next 5 to 10 years, where stuff won't get molded. It's just going to be printed out and put out. So that is the future of manufacturing. When that happens, you're going to see a lot of stuff come back to the States for manufacturing, because there's no point paying the shipping if we can print it on demand in the States, in Kentucky or Tennessee or one of those other horrible voting rights states, and we can put that manufacturing there. We don't need to have it in China, and that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, so those figures you got were made on a form printer, and they've got their own proprietary resin, and it's almost like an injection part. I mean, I've tried to break those pegs off there. I know everyone's been scared to handle them, but they are so durable and flexible and great. I ended up buying a printer, have been doing some small custom runs of figures and stuff. It's just amazing, and that I think that's what the future is going to be as well.
No, it's absolutely. We're almost there. We're just catching up, and then suddenly it's going to flip, and then everything will be printed, and manufacturing, a lot of manufacturing will come back to the States, because there's no reason to put those printers in China and ship it over if we can have it in Tennessee or in Kansas or Oklahoma and just make the product straight and then use our normal shipping throughout the States. That's definitely going to happen.
It's exciting too, really, because with the smaller runs, I mean, there's a lot of things that don't get made just because there's not a, you could sell 500 of them, but you can't sell 5,000 of them. So if you had, manufacturing on demand is going to be great. You can do these projects that nobody can touch.
Yeah. I mean, that's been the core usage of shows like DesignerCon.
Yeah.
Where, artists like me will make a run of 50 products or 100 products just for one trade show. And it's because
I've been doing that a lot.
We make, we're hand making those. So they're definitely more expensive. But once you can print on
I got a
demand,
sweatshop in my basement.
Yeah.
How about that?
We'll have, like you said, the 500 runs, 1,000 runs that you can just print out and send out to the customers, and that's going to change the stakes. But until then, we're still doing molds, and these are molded. They will be molded with the Kickstarter successful.
Correct.
So speaking
of
shows, like you
love these guys, I really do.
So you brought up, segueing from what you just said, Scott, about, these are the things we see at like DesignerCon. I was going to ask you guys. So we talked about the Kickstarter. We're going to start wrapping up on this soon, but I wanted to know, as we emerge from I want to say post-pandemic world, I'll be optimistic and say that. What is the promotion plan? Can we find you guys at any conventions showing these off? Post Kickstarter. What's your on tour plan for these? And if you don't say you don't have one, because you're going to go to shows. You're going to go to shows.
Well,
we're already thinking about Joe Fest first of all. We definitely want to do an exclusive for them for sure. Go ahead, Jason. I think you were going to say something.
No, I was just going to say, I think when we have product in hand, because like I said, these were designed and intended to be played with, and every time someone gets one in their hand, that's where it's exciting for us and exciting for them, and they can kind of see what we're doing. So when we have product in hand, I think some of the bigger shows definitely will be there, and any shows that we can travel to that are reasonable. I'm sure all the Joe shows, and I would like to do DesignerCon and stuff. I was there a couple of years ago, and the big show in Chicago. So yeah, I think we got to get the product though. When we set up at the Joe show last year, we didn't have any painted prototypes, and some people just can't visualize. I can look at nothing and see something that's not there, but a lot of people can't. They want to see a finished product that's painted, and so I think once that happens and we get out there and start to interact with people, we're gonna go gangbusters on getting this stuff out there.
Right on.
That's really the exciting part about this. Working all the time, every night on this projects. That's not the fun part. The fun part is talking to folks and explaining the vision and them getting excited. And when we did the show, people went back and they read the comic book in their hotel room, and they came back the next morning and they're like, I totally see what you guys are doing. This is awesome. And they get to play with the toys. So that's really going to be the reward that we're looking forward to, is just interacting with people. So we just got to get through this first this hurdle, and I think that we'll be able to we've got so many plans we've got more figures sculpted and more designed, and we've got more story to tell, and we just have to get through this first part of it. And
I saw your leather babes on Instagram. Wow. Yeah. From one leather toting, glasses wearing babe to the next. I'm into it. Matt LaCroix, anything you want to say? Where can we find you Any of that stuff? What do you guys think? Any final thoughts? I have a clock, Scott.
I know.
We all.
Yeah, we just want to reach out. We just want to reach out to everybody and make sure that we get the word out for this, because this is something special, and we just want to get all the pledges we can and make this a reality.
Yeah, we really appreciate you guys taking the time and having us on the show. This is kind of like our own little baby here that we love talking about. So we really appreciate you doing what you've done. This is really it's been kind of blown up over the last week or two. We've been, I think, just from you guys posting stuff and other people reposting stuff, it just keeps getting bigger and bigger, and it's been exciting. That's
amazing. I mean, they're great products. Like, they're great toys. The world of the Strike Force Alpha characters, the ensemble is exciting, and just following you guys' work is exciting, and what you guys have done and the marketing, and just seeing this like creeping up. And of course, like, we want nothing more than success for you guys on this toy line, because we've passed love letter. It's not a love letter. You guys have gone above and beyond your original, passion and love for GI Joes. Like, it's out of the water.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. No problem.
Yeah, guys, I'm even though I actually did some work on it, now that I see the other figures in that line, I'm really, really impressed. I really love the added articulation in these figures, the swappability, the playability, how you can just grab one of these figures from this line, put it in with your existing Joes. No one's going to bat an eye, except, hey, where's that guy? I don't have him. Oh, you got to get them from here. That's what's great about it. I look forward to different paint variations, additional heads, other packs that you can add on, and just keep customizing these figures. One more time, do the shout out where they can find this Kickstarter, where they can find you guys, and so they can race out and pledge their money at the stroke of midnight.
Matt?
You want to tell them where they can find us?
Well, we're Scorched Earth Initiative on Facebook. That's our Facebook group. And then Strike Force Alpha on Instagram. We've been mainly posting there, but we also have been posting in all the GI Joe groups. And Matt has been posting on any group that, even if it's not toy related. I've seen him post on really odd things. He wants to make this happen, so he's posting everywhere. But those are the two main places that we have. We also have a Strike Force Alpha website, and there's some of the pages of the comic book and stuff on there, so you can see some of that. And there's a contact on there as well, as if somebody has any questions. We've been answering a lot of questions on how Kickstarter works and what people need to do, and we've tried to answer all those questions. So that's the main places that you can get a hold of us at.
Awesome. Well, that's great, guys. We're at the 5-minute mark, and there went Lauren. She's gone. She's out of here. She's done.
I don't see it.
I'm really happy you guys could jump on here with us. We could show off the figures. I'm going to do a little more playing around with these figures before I give them back to you guys. And
I had one question for you, Scott.
I think Lauren's ready to join back in. Really? You jumped out.
Oh, there you go. Hey, Scott, I had one quick question for you.
Shoot.
So, does it kind of make sense now why we went with the different figures on the Kickstarter now that you have them in hand? There's not a lot of swappability when you only got 2 figures. So when you
I like what you have. I think it's really, you have 4 figures with alternate heads that actually give you 9 figures on this start.
Right.
But with that 9 figures, you can still do some, like I said right here, just moving bad guy heads around. You still have even more than 9 figures with that bit there. And that doesn't even count paint variations. If you were to go back and paint some of these guys in other colors, you can then swap the heads back over again, and you can expand that out into multitudes. So there's a lot of figures here that can be changed up really quick. So I'm really happy with it. I think it's a great start. Let's all pledge our money to the Kickstarter, get this going, and have another new line, not just copies of something, but a new line to add new creative possibilities to our collections and enhance that toy line of 3 3/4 action military guys. We're not using the word that we all love. And this just adds to that. And that's what I like about it.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. I'm Scott Zillner. This is Lauren Stone. We are Toy Wizards. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, of course, Toy Wizards. That's toy-wizards.com. Lauren, where can they find you?
Nowhere. I gotta go. No, just kidding. My name is spelled right there, so you guys can find me on Instagram, the Twitter, Facebook. You can find my writing on toy-wizard.com, and I also write the toy news on Sci-Fi Wire. So go over there for more toy news. Why not?
There we go. Alrighty, Matt, go ahead and give the shout out. You got 2 minutes.
You can find me on Instagram at LaCroix's Toys. That's about it.
Jason.
Short and sweet.
Yeah, I'm White Elephant Toys on the on Instagram, but they can find me on the Scorched Earth Initiative or the Strike Force Alpha Instagram. But
there we go. I want to thank everybody for watching this. This has been another Toy Talk Live and another very successful. I think it's going to be a very successful Kickstarter. I can't wait to pledge my money. I'm not going to do it at midnight, but I'll do it on the 4th or somewhere around there and get my figures. And I think it's great stuff. It really
Thank
is.
you, guys.
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Send me the link to your Kickstarter. We'll make sure that we share it. We'll do another article. Make sure everyone knows.
All right.
All right.
Awesome.
Cool.
All right. Well, I think that's it for everybody. I need to go make sure my house doesn't burn down in the next 2 days with rampant illegal fireworks, or around around my town, it's just mortar fire. They're just shooting off mortars now. They don't even care about fireworks. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Lauren. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Jason. And thank you guys, everyone who watched. And we will catch you later.
Bye.
Bye.
I got to hit the button. It takes like 2 minutes. I don't know why.